In this video, we'll be taking a look at 5 NFL games happening on December 14th, 2025, and providing you with free team picks and total picks for each one of those games, so 10 picks in total. Welcome back to Cash Out Sports. Let's dive right into it. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe and to click the bell icon to get notified as soon as these videos get released so that you have more time to plan out your bets as we provide these videos on a daily basis. I can guarantee that you'll have all the important information that you'll need on these 5 NFL games after fully watching this video. One more thing before we start, if you would like to gain access to our best exclusive sports picks to take your journey to the next level, then check out our Patreon in the link down below where we offer our best single picks, parlay picks, and much more. Now let's get started. Baltimore Ravens versus Cincinnati Bengals. For all intents and purposes, the Ravens look like a bit of a mess right now. They just dropped back-to-back games against division rivals, gave away their cushion at the top of the AFC North, and suddenly have to worry about missing the postseason altogether. Lamar Jackson is very clearly playing through something physical, and the guys around him have not exactly been making life easier for him in recent weeks. On top of that, a defense that finally settled in for about 6 weeks after a rough start is starting to slide again, which is exactly what you do not want when the calendar gets late. Even with all that, this spot in Cincinnati is essentially a must-have for John Harbaugh's team, and that matters. Sometimes a broken team is really just a good team running cold. The league has a short memory, and a couple of ugly weeks can swing the narrative way harder than the underlying play deserves. A few weeks back, Cincinnati went into Baltimore and handled the Ravens on the scoreboard in Joe Burrow's first game back under center. The box score tells a different story. Baltimore turned it over 5 times, including a brutal Isaiah Likely fumble right at the goal line late in the first half. That single play is a potential 14-point swing in a game that did not actually feel that lopsided whenever Baltimore kept the ball off the turf. Then there is last week against Pittsburgh. The Ravens outgained the Steelers by more than 100 yards, controlled the clock, and still walked away with a loss. They stalled repeatedly in the red zone, and a huge touchdown was wiped out by a very questionable overturn from the replay booth. When you see that pattern, it starts to feel like everything that can go wrong has gone wrong, and in betting terms, people talk about that as the kind of stretch that often flips the other way. From a matchup angle, Cincinnati's defense has been a mess against the run and has struggled to deal with tight ends. That sets up nicely for Lamar, Derrick Henry, and the full group of tight ends in this offense, especially if Baltimore leans into a physical, ground-heavy script to protect their banged-up quarterback. It is not flashy, but it is the kind of game plan that travels. On the other side, Joe Burrow and the Bengals just hung 34 points on the Bills, so the box score heroics are still fresh in everyone's mind. The catch is that T. Higgins might not be available, and this offense has basically needed to live in the 30-plus point range to feel safe. That can work when everything is clicking, but it is a lot of pressure if even one weapon is less than 100%. Given the matchup issues for Cincinnati's defense and the turnover noise weighing down Baltimore's recent results, I still lean, a bit reluctantly, toward the Ravens handling this short road number. As our first pick for this matchup, the Baltimore Ravens to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Baltimore's offense should be able to move the ball again, just like it did against Pittsburgh and in that earlier meeting with this same shaky Bengals defense. Sustained drives have not really been the problem. Finishing those drives has. All season long, the Ravens have had a habit of bogging down in the red zone. It cost them against Pittsburgh, and it played a major role in their earlier loss to Cincinnati as well. You can rack up yards, win time of possession, and still watch the scoreboard crawl if you keep trading 7s for 3s or, worse, for turnovers. That is the kind of profile that quietly points to lower totals than the yardage alone would suggest. Cincinnati's scoring outburst in the last matchup was helped by a series of short fields. The Bengals were gifted strong starting field position on several drives against Baltimore, and that is usually not the sort of luck that repeats on command. If they have to go the length of the field more often this time, especially without full clarity on Higgins, that can trim a few points off the final number all by itself. The expected game flow also leans slower. In very cold conditions in Cincinnati, both offenses have reasons to be a bit more measured, whether that is Baltimore trying to protect Jackson and lean on Henry or Cincinnati dialing things back a touch without its full complement of weapons. Cold, longer drives, and red zone hiccups can combine into a game that feels tense but not necessarily explosive on the scoreboard. Earlier in the week, anything in the upper 40s would have made an overcase more appealing, but with this total now sitting above the key number of 51, the value flips. Given the matchup, the recent red zone pattern, and the likely pace, I end up leaning toward a slightly lower scoring game and the under at this price. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Los Angeles Chargers versus Kansas City Chiefs. The Chargers and Chiefs meet at Arrowhead Stadium in Week 15, and it really feels like both teams are carrying very different kinds of baggage into this one. Kansas City is still treated like the juggernaut that rolled through the American Football Conference for years, but right now that reputation is doing more work than the roster. The Chiefs have dropped 4 of their last 5 straight up and have not covered in any of those 5. They were favorites in every one of those games, which probably stung a lot of bettors' accounts and maybe their pride too. Part of the problem is simple football math. They are missing 3 starting offensive linemen, one of their top 2 receivers, and might be without their all-pro corner. That is not a small detail, that is the spine of the operation. When that much core talent is out, even a star quarterback starts to look human, and you can feel that in how choppy their offense has been. On the other side, Los Angeles did not exactly crush Philadelphia, but they did what actually counts, they won. The performance was not pretty, but in the league, style points do not cash tickets. The Chargers have quietly covered in 7 of the last 10 meetings with Kansas City and took the first matchup between these two earlier this season. So even when the Chiefs have come out ahead on the scoreboard, the Chargers have often kept games close enough to reward anyone holding their ticket. Now, there is a bit of tension in the trends that people love to argue over. Kansas City has still won 7 of the last 8 head-to-head against Los Angeles, which sounds dominant at first glance. At the same time, the market has treated the Chiefs like the old version of themselves for a long stretch, and that has left the door open for the Chargers to sneak in the back with those covers. It is a good reminder that who wins and who covers are cousins, not twins. There is also the emotional angle that always gets thrown into conversations like this. The Chiefs are said to be in must-win territory, needing to run the table to feel good about their playoff chances. That kind of spot often makes people want to trust the proven team again. Their defense still likes to bring pressure, and against a battered Chargers offensive line, that sounds appealing. We watched what Philadelphia's front did to that same line, and that was without Jalen Carter wrecking things inside. It is not hard to picture a similar script where Herbert spends a lot of snaps moving instead of stepping into throws. Even with that, the Chiefs have built a recent track record that is hard to ignore when you are talking about the spread. Since November, they are 0-5 against the spread and 1-4 straight up as a favorite. When they are favored by 4 or more points, they are just 4-10 against the number in their last 14. At the same time, the Chargers keep getting treated like a flawed team everyone likes to complain about, rather than a solid group with a legitimately talented defense and an offense that would look a lot better if they were not dealing with so many injuries. In a rivalry that has been tight historically and with both teams still chasing postseason positioning, this feels like another spot where the game can stay close deep into the fourth quarter. As our first pick for this matchup, the Los Angeles Chargers to cover the spread as underdogs is our full game side pick. Both offensive lines have had real trouble keeping their quarterbacks clean, and that usually shows up in long yardage situations, stalled drives, and more punts than anyone enjoys. The Chargers' offense looked flat for long stretches against Philadelphia and really leaned on those 5 Eagles turnovers to escape with a win. That kind of turnover bonanza is not something you can plan around twice. Herbert could be staring at another long afternoon. The Chiefs' front is coming off a strong performance and should be fully locked in with their season hanging in the balance. Pressure snaps timing, shrinks windows, and often turns explosive plays into harmless checkdowns. That alone can quietly drag a total downward. Kansas City's own offense has been wobbling all year, with spurts where it looks almost like the old version and long patches where drives sputter. There is a sense they are due for some positive turnover and late down regression, but due does not block a pass rusher or catch a contested ball. The Chargers' defense still profiles as a top 10 unit in the league, and that kind of group can reasonably hold Kansas City to 24 points or fewer, especially when it is not exactly a gentle weather setting. The numbers on the season back up that lower scoring lean. Los Angeles has seen the under hit in 7 of its 13 games so far. On the road, their totals are split, but they have gone over in 4 of their last 7 overall, which mostly speaks to how volatile their games can feel week to week. Kansas City, meanwhile, has gone under in 9 of 13. The under has cashed in 7 of their last 8, and they have been held to 21 points or less in 3 of their last 5 outings. When these two have met recently, the total has leaned quiet too, with the under going 3-1 in the last 5 matchups. Add in the expectation of a brutally cold day in Kansas City, the kind of weather that makes hands sting and routes a little slower, and you get a game script that tilts toward fewer points rather than more. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Las Vegas Raiders versus Philadelphia Eagles. The Las Vegas Raiders head to Lincoln Financial Field to face the Philadelphia Eagles in a Week 15 matchup, and it feels like two teams on very different trajectories walking into the same cold building. Las Vegas has stumbled through the season with just 2 wins in 13 games, and that is not a typo. It has been that rough. The road has treated them even worse, with only 1 victory in 6 away contests, so a 1-5 road mark that pretty much tells the story. They have dropped 7 in a row and covered the spread only once in their last 4 outings, which makes them a tough team to trust, even if you are the optimistic type. Philadelphia, on the other hand, has clearly been the better team overall, even if you would not guess it from their recent 3-game skid. Their slump makes this spot feel a little strange at first glance, because backing a favorite that has been losing can feel like touching a hot stove twice. But here the matchup and context pull things back in their direction, with the Eagles at home, facing a Raiders group that has struggled almost everywhere, especially when they have to travel. The biggest gap between these teams shows up on the offensive side for Las Vegas. Their attack has been lifeless, sitting at the very bottom of the league in points per game, and it often looks like they are trying to run uphill in mud. They now run into a Philadelphia defense that grades as a top 10 unit, with enough talent up front and in coverage to make life miserable for any offense that already struggles to move the ball. When a team that already scores the fewest points in the league meets a top-tier defense on the road, you rarely expect a sudden explosion of productivity. Of course, the Eagles are not exactly a well-oiled machine right now either. They have dropped 3 in a row and their offense has sputtered, but their ceiling is still much higher, their roster is deeper, and they get the benefit of home crowd noise and familiar surroundings. In spots like this, where one side is slumping but still clearly superior and the other side has been consistently bad, the more talented team at home usually has an easier path to covering the number, especially when the weaker team has been failing both straight up and against the spread week after week. Taken together, the Raiders' extended losing streak, their road issues, and their league-worst scoring profile, matched with a strong Eagles defense in a home bounce-back situation, all push the probability toward Philadelphia controlling the game script enough to win by margin and cover the spread as the favorite. As our first pick for this matchup, the Philadelphia Eagles to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Las Vegas offers very little inspiration on offense outside of Bowers, who is one of the only real sparks in their attack. Rookie running back Ashton Jeanty came into the league with first-round expectations, but he has not had much room to show off. The Raiders are sitting dead last in the NFL in rushing yards per game at 72.7, and their 3.4 yards per carry figure is also worst in the league. The offensive line has been a major problem, rarely opening lanes and turning most runs into a crowd scene at the line of scrimmage. When a team cannot run, it becomes one-dimensional, and that usually drags totals downward because drives stall and punts pile up. Head coach Pete Carroll's group, as described here, is at the bottom of the league in scoring at 15.1 points per game and second from the bottom in total offense at 257.2 yards per contest. Quarterback Geno Smith has labored through the season with almost as many interceptions, 14, as touchdown passes, 16, and he is dealing with a shoulder issue from last week's loss to Denver that leaves his status in question. There is also a mention that things will not improve much with Pickett at quarterback, which only reinforces the idea that whoever is under center for this offense is unlikely to change the fundamental math on points. When the passing situation is shaky and the ground game is already broken, it is hard to build a case for a sudden surge of scoring. The environment does not help the offenses either. Game time temperatures are expected to hover around 30 degrees with northwest winds around 17 miles per hour and then slide into the mid-20s as the night wears on. Cold plus wind is the classic combination that makes passing more difficult, kicking less reliable, and fingers a little stiffer than you would like if you are catching fastballs across the middle. Anyone who has watched a windy outdoor game in December knows it often turns into a field position battle rather than a track meet. Philadelphia's offense, which should be the more dangerous unit on paper, has also been shockingly flat for about 5 weeks. Jalen Hurts' performance in Week 14 against the Chargers was especially rough, and that word might even be too kind. He turned the ball over 5 times, including one absurd sequence where he threw an interception, then ended up recovering a fumble on the same play, only to fumble it again back to the Chargers. His 4th interception of the night in overtime ended that game in a way that felt both brutal and oddly fitting for how the evening had gone. When your quarterback is pressing and the offense is out of sync, you tend to see shorter drives, more conservative calls, and fewer clean red zone trips. Trend-wise, the under has hit in 3 of the Raiders' last 4 road games and in all 5 of the Eagles' most recent contests. Over the full season, the under is 7-6 in Las Vegas games and 8-5 in Philadelphia games relative to the posted totals. The Raiders have scored 20 or fewer points in 8 of their last 9 outings and have not topped 17 in any of their last 5, which is a remarkable level of offensive drought. Expecting more than 14 points from them right now feels very optimistic, maybe even wishful. Pair that with an Eagles offense that has recently struggled to find rhythm, and you get a setup that leans strongly toward a lower-scoring contest rather than a shootout. All of that, the broken Las Vegas rushing attack, the shaky quarterback situation, the cold and windy weather, and an Eagles offense stumbling through turnovers and inconsistency, points squarely toward a game that grinds along below the number, making a total of 38.5 look more like a ceiling than a target. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. New York Jets versus Jacksonville Jaguars. The New York Jets, sitting at 3-10, head to Jacksonville to face a Jaguars team at 9-4 in what sets up as a rough American Football Conference matchup for the visitors. It is the kind of spot where you already feel the imbalance before the ball is even kicked, which is saying something in a league that lives on parity. Jacksonville is coming off a 36-19 win over the Colts on December 7th, a game where Trevor Lawrence threw for 244 yards and 2 touchdowns, while Travis Etienne punched in 2 scores on the ground. That result was not just another win, it was their 4th in a row, and it came as a short underdog, which matters for people who care about trends. The Jaguars are 9-2 against the spread when they are playing after a straight-up win as an underdog, and they are 7-1 against the spread in their last 8 games that followed a divisional home matchup. That is a very specific slice of data, but bettors love those little slices. Add in the league's top-ranked run defense giving up just 82.9 rushing yards per game, and you can see why this team is built to squeeze Breece Hall and push the Jets' already shaky quarterbacks into bad spots. New York lands here in far different shape, and not in a good way. The Jets are coming off a 34-10 loss to Miami on December 7th, a game where rookie Brady Cook threw 2 interceptions and the offense managed only 163 passing yards. Their pattern against the spread in this type of setup has been ugly, almost theatrically so. They are 1-9-1 against the spread following a home game, and 0-6 against the spread when facing a team that won as a home underdog in its previous outing. On top of all that, their passing offense ranks dead last in the league at 146.5 yards per game, and they have not generated a single takeaway all season, which leaves them with no easy way to swing momentum. That is like trying to come back in a poker game without ever winning a single big pot. While the Jets are stumbling, Jacksonville rolls into this matchup hunting for a 5th straight victory. The Jaguars have put up at least 27 points in 4 of their last 5 games, and they have been tough at home with a 5-2 record there. New York, meanwhile, has dropped 3 of its last 4 and is fresh off that ugly defeat to Miami. With injuries to their top 2 quarterbacks, the worst passing attack in the NFL is somehow poised to get even worse. It is a strange sentence to write, but it fits this team right now. That leads straight into the number hanging on this game. Laying 13 points in an NFL matchup usually makes people queasy, since double-digit spreads feel more like college lines. Yet this pairing makes it easier to understand why the number is where it is. Brady Cook, an undrafted quarterback who is completing under 50% of his passes so far, is on the field, and he will not have the team's top 2 pass catchers for the season. Breece Hall might not play either, which strips yet another safety valve away from an offense that already leans on him heavily. Combine that with Jacksonville's need to stack wins in a crowded American Football Conference playoff race, and you can see a very real scenario where the Jaguars get ahead and keep pressing, stretching the margin. As our first pick for this matchup, the Jacksonville Jaguars to win and cover the spread as favorites is our full game side pick. Jacksonville's passing offense sits in the bottom half of the NFL, which is easy to forget when you see their recent point totals. The Jets, for all their offensive flaws, have at times done a good job squeezing the air out of opposing passing games. We saw flashes of that version of their defense against teams like the Ravens and Browns when they managed to frustrate strong quarterbacks and force a more methodical pace. If that unit shows up again, Lawrence could find himself forced to check down more and accept longer drives instead of quick strikes. On the other side of the ball, it is hard to talk yourself into a lot of faith in this Jets offense. If Brady Cook does start under center, the ceiling on what New York can reasonably expect to do on offense drops even lower, especially against this particular Jacksonville defense. The Jaguars have allowed the 6th fewest passing yards per attempt while recording the 2nd most interceptions in the league. They have also allowed the 5th fewest rushing yards per carry, which means Breece Hall, if he plays, is likely looking at a long afternoon against stacked boxes and a front that wins at the line. When you string all of so how exactly are the Jets supposed to create points in this setting, especially with all the hurdles they face on offense? The idea that their defense might chip in and flip the game on its own runs into another problem. This secondary has yet to record a single interception, making New York the only team in the league without one. They can barely move the ball on offense, and once Jacksonville grabs a comfortable lead, the most logical path is to lean on ball control, shorten the game, and protect key players. That approach chews clock, keeps drives slow and steady, and quietly drags the total down. With the Jets struggling to contribute much on the scoreboard, it becomes tough to see this matchup producing enough points to push the game over the projected total. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. Arizona Cardinals versus Houston Texans. Houston and Arizona square off at NRG Stadium on Sunday in Week 15, and it is one of those games where the matchup feels pretty clear on paper, even if bettors still sweat spreads like this. Houston is rolling, Arizona is hanging on, and both teams are walking in with very different vibes. Houston is coming off a 20-10 win over Kansas City on December 7th, where C.J. Stroud threw for 203 yards and a touchdown while Nico Collins put up 121 receiving yards. The Texans picked off Patrick Mahomes 3 times and held the Chiefs to just 274 total yards, which is exactly the kind of thing you expect from a defense that sits first in total defense at 266.3 yards per game and first in points allowed at 16.0 per game. When your quarterback protects the ball and your top wideout keeps winning matchups, it gives the defense room to do its thing, and it gives the offense enough balance to stay ahead of the number, especially at home. Arizona, on the other side, is dragging itself into this matchup after a 45-17 loss to the Rams on December 7th. Jacoby Brissett threw for 271 yards and 2 touchdowns in that one, which looks fine until you remember the defense gave up 500 total yards and got sliced up all afternoon. The Cardinals sit 26th in scoring defense at 26.8 points allowed per game and have forced only 9 takeaways all year, which is a rough combination when you are facing efficient offenses like Houston's. Pile on the injury news, with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Max Melton both sidelined by heel issues, and the margin for error gets even smaller. Houston's defense is not just good on paper, it closes doors both against the run and the pass. The only other time the Texans were favored by more than one possession this season, they covered against the Titans in a comfortable win, which matters when you are trying to judge how they handle being the bully instead of the underdog. This unit is built to push a struggling Arizona offense into long third downs and force multiple turnovers, and that is exactly the game script Houston wants. The Cardinals could not move the ball against the Rams in that big loss, and facing a tougher defense on the road is hardly a friendly bounce-back spot. Zooming out, the Texans are trying to stretch their winning streak to 6 games on Sunday afternoon. Only New England, with 10 straight, has a longer run right now. Houston sits at 8-5, squarely in the American Football Conference wildcard picture and in second place in the American Football Conference South ahead of Indianapolis. Their defense is arguably the best in the league, ranking first in total defense, first in scoring defense, 4th against the pass, and 5th against the run. 4 straight opponents, including the Bills, Colts, and Chiefs, have been held under 20 points, which is not an accident over that kind of sample. Arizona brings a 3-10 record and a 5-game losing streak into this spot, and the franchise feels like it is stuck in neutral. Kyler Murray has been out with a foot injury since Week 5 and will not play again this season, and there is real doubt that he suits up for this franchise again. Brissett has been solid solid in relief, but this offense lacks real juice. Against a defense like Houston's, you pretty much need an explosive, high-variability attack just to keep it close, and the Cardinals are not that. Defensively, they are again at 26th in scoring, giving up those 26.8 points per game, and their 24 sacks are among the lowest totals in the league. From a betting angle, the Cardinals are 1-4 against the spread in their last 5 overall, while the Texans are 3-0 against the spread in their last 3, 4-1 against the spread in their last 5 on the road, and 2-0 against the spread in the last 2 head-to-head meetings. Against a superior defense in a hostile environment, it shapes up as a long afternoon for Arizona and its fans. It is hard to overstate how strong this Texans defense has been. This unit has produced 36 sacks and forced 22 turnovers, which is the 4th most in the league. On the other side of the ball, the offense has only given it away 10 times, the 3rd fewest in the NFL, so the defense is rarely stuck defending short fields or sudden changes. That complementary football matters for totals, since fewer cheap points usually means fewer wild swings on the scoreboard. Stroud has been steady but not spectacular since returning from his concussion layoff. In 2 starts after missing 3 games, he has gone a combined 37 of 66 for 479 yards with 1 touchdown and 1 interception. Those are respectable numbers, but they are not exactly the stat lines of an offense that is trying to race to 40 every week. This group is happy to play within the structure of the game, lean on field position, and let the defense control tempo. On the Arizona side, Brissett is doing decent work, but he is not getting much help from the running game. The Cardinals lean heavily on the pass because their running backs and offensive line are not getting it done on the ground, which often leads to those ugly 3-and-out sequences that stall drives and chew clock without producing points. No matter what Brissett brings on Sunday, it is tough to trust any offense right now against Houston's defense. With players like Will Anderson Jr., Danielle Hunter, and a rotating cast of pass rushers firing off the edge, it feels more like survival than rhythm for opposing quarterbacks. It is not crazy to wonder if Arizona can even avoid getting shut out, as harsh as that sounds. The trends back up the eye test. The under is 4-0 in the Texans' last 4 games overall and 2-0 in the last 2 head-to-head meetings with the Cardinals. Houston is again coming off that 20-10 win over Kansas City on December 7th, another game where 3 interceptions of Mahomes and just 274 total yards allowed kept the scoring modest. With Houston leading the NFL in both total defense at 266.3 yards per game and points allowed at 16 per game, their games naturally tilt toward lower totals because they suffocate drives and squeeze out explosive plays. The betting angles deepen that picture. The Texans are 1-8 to the under in the first of back-to-back home games and 1-6 to 1 to the under in their last 8 home contests against National Football Conference opponents, which shows how often their defense slows things down in these specific spots. On top of that, Houston's offense has not exactly been lighting up scoreboards even while winning. The team is comfortable in low-scoring battles. The Cardinals' offense, meanwhile, has been a big reason they have not been able to stack wins. They rely on the passing game because the ground attack and blocking are not getting them anywhere, and that style, against this defense, points to a lot of stalled possessions. The under is 4-1 when Houston has played at home and 4-2 when the Texans have played on the road, and we have already seen 4 straight low-scoring unders in their recent stretch. A 5th feels very realistic here, given how both offenses and defenses match up. As our second pick for this matchup, under the projected total is our full game total pick. That's all for now, so if you have any other games you would like reviewed, then leave a comment down below with the game you would like analyzed, subscribe to our channel, leave a like on this video, and we'll get to it as soon as we possibly can. We would also love to hear your opinion on the picks presented to you in this video, whether you agree or disagree with them, so leave a comment down below and do let us know.